All right, we coming in hot today. So, first things first, we got to go through all of the thank yous. I appreciate each and every one of y'all that's popping in, new subscribers coming back around. I'm so grateful to have each and every one of you, all of the comments, all of the likes, all of the views, all of the things. I appreciate y'all, and I'm glad to be just giving a little touch of something. I want to call it a palate cleanser. So hopefully it's giving you what it needs to give just at any given time of the day. And as always, I appreciate you for trusting me with just your ear and just giving me a listen. So um thank you. But yeah, I want to talk about, because it has come out today that Miss Nicki, once again. So we left off having some discussion about her before. I've done some past videos talking about her, and I have my points written out here so that I don't spend too much time in too many different spaces and kind of making this more complicated than it needs to be. But we've talked about her in the past. We know that Nick comes from an abusive environment, right? And I often talk about the brain kind of works in this pendulum once you've had this traumatic kind of experience or if you've dealt with significant stress, right? And specifically for Nikki, um, I get this belief or this feeling that she can kind of operate in this extremely aggressive notion or this extremely passive. And this is not by any means exerting the idea that she is like running down on people and putting hands on them and everything else. I'm talking about with just how she carries herself, how she looks at life. She just looks at life through this lens of whether or not she's going to be the abused or the abuser. And like I said, we talked about that before. But another component of the discussion that we had is that I believe that Nick does a lot of masking. And what I've actually learned and confirmed is that people that experience trauma or recurring stress have this tendency to deal with or struggle with dissociation. And it's the symptom of just forgetting or putting themselves in a different mindset, in a different place, right? Getting so far away from what happened to them that they are kind of becoming someone else. And inside of that discussion, I very much feel, and I still feel this way, and I'm going to show you why I believe this even more now, is that a lot of what she does is to imitate Cardi. I think that imitating Cardi or this shared space that they have hasn't quite worked out because I'm starting to see that. I'm like, I think she has more of a desire to be like a Megan, but I believe that she has a desire to present as someone else because that's what imperfections in life can do to some people, right? When you're dealing with extreme stress, when you're dealing with extreme trauma, you kind of want to escape to a different place. It's not unreasonable by any means, but as of late, we have her now coming out with the endorsement or the MAGA Minaj movement, as we've come to understand it, right? And so, very simply, we can get into the whys, right? I personally see it as she wants to mirror uh, Megan. She wants to mirror Cardi because they have been important voices, significant voices inside of this moment. Of course, we have Beyonce, who has routinely like kind of stepped up into the endorsement of the Democratic Party, which I think is cool, but we'll thumbnail that for another conversation. Um, but I do think that another big component of it is that I think that her finances are really in a tough spot. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I haven't noticed that she has this situation happening where her lawyer dropped her in the middle of this defamation suit where, they filed in one space and they filed in, the victim filed in another state in New York. I think it was New Jersey, then New York. And, she lost her legal representation. We have this issue of the lien on her house. And the lien on her house, I know that there's a lot of barbs that want to be like, fuck out of here, she not broke, fuck out of here, da, da, da. Like it's all of those things. But the miss on that is there was a judgment made against her that she has not responded to, that she's not paying, that she's not fighting. And these two things to me, standing together, again, looks like trouble in paradise financially. That's my perception. Um, because one thing, shout out Cardi because she made that comment. She's like, one thing about making a lot of money is that you also got to protect your money because people see that you have it and they come after it. And once you are in a position where you cannot protect your money anymore, I have a perception that it has to do with the fact that you don't have the means to protect it. But again, I'm simply speculating. Secondarily, I do think that she's struggling with her popularity a bit. We've seen that she's deleted her IG, and it makes total sense, right? After that whole thing, honestly, her IG got really, really polluted after the incident where she did the song about Meg, the diss track, and she did the line on your mom's joint. It didn't really go well after that, right? So she didn't have like this super significant loss of followers, that at least not that I can recall. It was just that the engagement on the page had gotten so negative and so nasty. I was like, oh no, this is really bad. And then she had this turnaround with Cardi happen, and it's only gotten worse, right? Like it only picked up again, and them comments again was just nasty. So watching her get rid of that, it makes complete sense. Because it wasn't going to be as positively reinforcing as it once upon a time may have been. And then of course going back to that notion about, finances and things coming up as far as lawsuits and the inability to protect her assets, I also think that the legal troubles around her husband was a really good point that other people are bringing up, that she's looking for pardons and whatnot. And what made me again think about that further is she previously mentioned Desiree, like, oh, I thought that everybody hates Trump and this, that, and the other. And that makes sense, right? Because she's creating the cloak and dagger kind of thing, where it's like, oh, I'm going to put this up here as deflection, as a distraction, but I'm going to go ahead and pursue what I see fit, right? So all of that stuff kind of made a lot of sense as far as the justification to go forward and do it. But if I were on her team, and I mean this with love, I would probably advise against the red pill grift. Not simply because I'm not a fan of what they stand for and so on, but in case she wasn't paying attention or real close attention, because I think that the popularity of them on social media and specifically on the Twitter space will make you believe one side of the conversation that might not entirely be true. And I also think that making the decision to become MAGA Minaj may be more adverse for her than it would be her counterparts, right? So outside of the fact that we have Tory Lanez who attempted to do this whole MAGA thing, and we see what's going on with him. Old boy is, he's getting sanctions, held in contempt of court. He lost his appeal, all of these things, right? Because all they wanted was a rally up, and they wanted to be able to disqualify or discount Meg, who was attached to the Democratic Party. It was a tactic. It was a strategy. It wasn't that they actually cared about his outcomes. And that's tough. And then there's also this whole Civil War thing where you have like Nick Fuentes, you have Black MAGA, everybody's being dismantled. You have I think his name is Vakash. JD Vance is getting fever because his wife is Indian. Like just all of these things, like, because I don't know if you know, but once upon a time, not once upon a time, technically when Indian people fill out like census reports and things like that, they typically identify as white. And, MAGA is out there reminding them that they're not white. So it's going a little left. But rather than pointing to that, I would rather have a conversation about Miss Good Jeans herself. Yeah, let's talk about it. Right? I would sit here and go into a whole rant about, the dog whistle of the white people and everything else, but I don't think that that's really necessary, because I think it's twofold here. I think, like Nicki, Sydney thought that she's just the cute, blonde haired, blue eyed, big titty girl that people love and adore. She was in it for popularity. She was in it because, hey, don't you just like my great genes, right? I genuinely think that she saw that as an opportunity to market her attractiveness. And I'm not mad at her. But the difference is that American Eagle used it in two different ways. I'm not going to remove Sydney from her responsibility as far as co-signing that. Because to some extent or another, I could never say that you had no idea or no intentionality around this dog whistle of racism. So that's fine. But I believe they could hide behind the big boobs and nobody would ask a question. They wouldn't bat an eye. Because doesn't everybody just like big boobs? Everybody likes that, right? So like, I think that American Eagle really wanted to get in their Abercrombie and Fitch and Lululemon bag, and they thought that they would get there without any consequences. And arguably, if I remember correctly, I'm actually going to see if I can find something to confirm this. Their stock went up when they did the dog whistle. It's like, oh, you one of us now. Hey, welcome to the gang. So even though it didn't quite pan out as well for Sydney, it went well for American Eagle. But you see, therein lies the thing. The thing is that it's not about you, right? So full stop, young women, you are arm candy. Like, you are something attractive, you are something that they can put on the front. You can be the thing that falls on the sword. They get to see you, they look at you, and you look at them and embrace you and all of the things. You get to be a wonderful little asset, a little accolade, a little accessory. Not very different than the LV bag or the puppy that you keep in the cage, or in the actually the puppy in the LV bag, right? You get to be an expensive gift. People love that. So, but let's think about what happened to Sydney. She did a whole movie, and this movie debuted with what they have deemed one of the top 10 worst opening films in history. But why is that? Well, when you cater to white men that only like things a certain sort of way, when you have a conversation about a boxer that goes into the space as a lesbian, I don't think that the Matt Welshes and the Brett Coopers are going to bring like their daughters and their friends and to come and see you play a lesbian that does boy things. Like, it just saying. There's a chance that they might like, oh no, we don't do that here. We don't support that. But you know, they were happy to promote the idea that you didn't apologize about the racism or the perception of racism in that jeans ad, because, you know, if that's what I meant, I would have said it. Brand assessment, babes. Brand assessment. You know, popularity is cool. It really is. And I think the difference, or the biggest and most important difference between Nick and Sydney, is that you had them good genes. For Sydney, might put her someplace else and give her an opportunity to be redeemed and be forgiven. And oh no, that was in the past, right? Because, you know, that's what happens. They're not monsters, they just make mistakes. That's all. But hey, be that strong, independent, light makeup, sharp lip puppet that you need to be, that makes certain people of certain groups look a little less harmful. We've seen it before.
This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like, he liked 15-year-old girls. I don't know what's true about him, but we have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10, I was under 14 when I first came within his purview. Look, you can say that's a distinction without a difference.
No, it's not.
I think there is a difference. Yeah. There's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old. Yeah. You know, it's just whatever. It's sick. Every time we start talking about Epstein, it makes your skin crawl, right? The whole thing is just disgusting.
Totally.
So, Nick, here's what I'll say. You deciding to be the speaker of MAGA Nation, regardless of your claims of what it's for and what it means, my personal purview, it's giving Ghislaine Maxwell of MAGA. Maybe we should try another angle. Just maybe. Because I don't see how you can come back from this if you actually got this wrong. But I'm sure that your fans, the ones that are still around, will be happy to support you the best that they absolutely can. And hopefully it translates into the happy and fulfilled life you've always asked for. And before we go, just in light of us having all of this conversation, isn't the theory of like gay Republicans, doesn't it make sense? And I'm not trying to be shady. I'm saying that if you have a party that spends a lot of time just dog on females, just in general, like, oh, women's supposed to be this, women's supposed to be that, they're not good for nothing, they just take up space, they just this, they just that. Like, there's this whole thing with like Nick Fuentes dog piling on Charlie Kirk's wife, like his widow. And I'm like, yo, bro, she's the heir to the company. He's still mad. He's still mad. And I'm like, at some point, wouldn't just always calling women gross make you like kind of like defoliate? I'm just saying. I know that there's a whole conversation about nature versus nurture. And if you do science, they'll tell you that there's no way to say that it's one way 100% or the other way 100%. It's just not a fact. And what I'm saying is that if you keep saying that women are gross, and if you keep admiring men, if you keep saying that white men are so fantastic, they're so wonderful, don't you think at some point the guys will love other guys too? I'm just saying. Tell me what you think. I'll talk to y'all later.